All right, we are live. Welcome everybody to episode 77 of the live Q&A for Productivity Academy. If you're joining us live, go ahead and you can pop any questions in, whether you're in the group, you're watching on the page, just go ahead and pop that in and I'll come back to that as we go along here. I'm going to minimize my screen and get this set up while we go. Let's see, I'm going to switch over and make sure that that's working. All right. We are looking good. Occasionally you have some fun tech issues setting this up. So let's start today. What we're going to talk about today is an update with IFTTT and how we can build an automation to fix something that I consider to be very important. There's sort of great automations you can set up so you don't spend a ton of time in your email inbox. And with some changes that Gmail made to the way that some of these services access, you can no longer do that using IFTTT. So I'm going to go through and show how you can do that using Zapier. So free to set up, that's going to be awesome. And then as time allows, if we have some extra questions, we will get into those. So real quick, if you haven't joined the community, come join the Facebook group. If you're checking out the replay, you can find the link below. If you want to as well and you're checking out the replay on YouTube, you can subscribe, stay up to date with, of course, these videos. You can ask questions, anything about productivity, time management, automation, team building, all that sort of good stuff, as well as occasionally as new stuff like this comes out where there's updates to automations, reviews on new products and services, all that sort of good stuff. So let's get into it. I'm going to switch over here to the second monitor, and there we go. So yeah, you can see this right here. It said an important notice about Gmail service. So unfortunately, Google changed the way they implemented some of their API, and now you can no longer do what we used to be able to do, which is really neat. You could go into your email and star an email. And let me show you what I mean here. We'll go into the Productivity Academy's Gmail. You could just star an email and then do something based off of that. So for example, I could star an email and have it pop into my Todoist so that, you know, the few times I try to go into email each day, I don't get sucked into this rabbit hole of having to deal with everything. I could quickly say, hey, let's deal with what's really important right here and, you know, something I can take action on right now. And then maybe there's stuff that's also important, but it's not something I can do quickly or it doesn't need to be actioned right now. I could star it and get that put into Todoist where I could then sort it later and then get out of my inbox. So I'm not in here and ending up in some crazy email rabbit hole, you know, for 5 or 10 minutes at a time. So unfortunately, that's not working, but that's okay because using Zapier, we can set up something that's, you know, just as good, if not a little bit better. I think that the formats and some of the options you get really makes this worthwhile to set up. So let's get started on this. If you don't have this yet and you just want to follow along and set this up for yourself, I think this is a great one. So let's just get started. First of all, you can go to Zapier. It's a free account, easy to set up. And this is just kind of what it looks like with a mostly blank account here. I've got a test account I have for setting this up. And we can go in and we're just going to click on Make a Zap. Okay, and I've already gone through and done some of these steps. If it's your first time doing this, you'll need to connect apps as you go, but it's super simple so long as you're logged into them. You can go ahead and just authorize. It'll have a little pop-up saying, hey, you know, do you want Gmail to have access, or rather, do you want Zapier to have access to Gmail or Todoist? You click yes, and it's good to go. So, like we said, we want to have something happen when we star an email, and that's called the trigger in Zapier. So you just think of it as an action. When I do something, what is that? And in this case, it's starring an email. So we're going to select that one. There's a lot of other things you can do, but for that, we just need to click that, save and continue. And then if you have more than one account, you can select it, or you just click, in this case, I just have the one, save and continue. And then it does its own little, pulls in options so you can see some of the test data. So I got an email I sent myself. Don't forget about this email. And then any other information you have down here. So let's continue. And now it's just telling us your Zap currently lacks an action step. Add one now. And that just means, okay, well, we've got a trigger. So Zapier is going to say, hey, something was starred. Now, what am I supposed to do with that? So you click down here and click on add a step. And there's a lot more we can do. We can filter things out. We could pause or delay for an amount of time. We could do some formatting. We could take something from the email and format it differently. But in this case, we're just going to stick with a simple two-step setup here. And in this case, we're going to use Todoist. Okay, a quick word on this. You could set up, anything else that Zapier is connected to, and it is connected to thousands of apps. So just because you're not using Todoist doesn't mean you can't do this. If you use Evernote, you could connect it to Evernote. If you're using one of many other good to-do apps, connect those. It's basically the same. It just may have a little bit different data entry, which I'll show you as we set this up. But the idea is the same. Okay, so once we've started this email, what do we want to do? Well, we want to, in general, create a task, all right? That's what we're going to do for this one because we want to have it pop up in our inbox so that we can deal with it the next time, whether it's beginning or end of the day when we go through and clear out our tasks. All right, so let's continue on. Okay, again, I've already connected this. If you hadn't connected your account yet, you just need to authorize it. There would just be one additional step there. So let's continue. And this is where the fun comes in. So if you've used Todoist, some of this should be pretty clear. If you haven't, that's okay. A lot of this is similar in different programs. You just need to select where you want this to go as a task. And it says by default is inbox. I prefer to just go ahead and select it. And I do that because I want it to make sure that it's in my inbox and I see it. Title. And this is going to be, I'm going to hop actually into Todoist. We're just going to make one real quick. This is a test. Okay, so this is what's called the title. And then over here we would have notes if you have the premium version. But title is enough to get this done. So let's go over here. And this is where the fun comes in because now we can start pulling things out from the email. So let me pull that up real quick. All right. So now we just think about what is it we want to tell ourselves, right? Because we get to kind of design this, and this is the fun part. So I like to be very literal when I do this so that when I go through my tasks, I know exactly what it is. So I'm going to write start email. I need to review it and set an action. All right. And then the next line, and this is a little introduction to some formatting. You can use 2 stars, and that will bold things. So this helps set it out. I like to know who it's from. And now we can go in and we click this little button or area over here, and we're going to search for from name. That's who it's from, but I want to know the email. And again, you could use name or email, however you want to set it up, but I just recognize the email real quick when I go through that, so I like having that. Plus, if I need to do something or send something back, I have that really handy. Okay, something else you might want to do if you have multiple email accounts is a to field. So who was this sent to? Was this to a particular email address you have? And in this case, we will do 2 emails. And if you only have the 1 email account, you could probably leave this off. That's fine too. And then I like to have the subject. What is this about? And I want that to be bold as well. So let's do subject. And choose that from the drop down. All right. And then the last thing I like to do, since I use a browser and I like to keep my email closed so that I'm not tempted to go in there, right? I'm a creature of habit. If I see the tab with the Gmail or I see a notification, I'm probably going to get distracted. So this is a fun one I like to add. You can do link to the email itself and then add that in there. Let's go find that. There we go, message URL. That is the link to the exact email. So if you click on that, it will open it up in your browser, get into Gmail, and it'll bring up that email. So I find that really handy too, so it doesn't just take me to my inbox where I might get distracted. I get to see just that email, so super helpful. Now, the one extra thing that I think you could do if you're using the premium version is you could attach the email as a note. And again, we saw that over here where, let me bring this back up, cancel. If we tried to do that, it says, comments and file uploads are premium features. You don't need that because we've already added the link in here, but if you wanted to go one step further, you could use that field to add the entire email, so you don't even have to go out to Todoist sometimes. And if you wanted to do that, all you would do down here is, as a note, you would add, let's bring it up right here. Well, we could use the raw snippet, is the one I believe I've used before. So I'll just put that in there so that that gets added in. Again, though, if you're just using the free accounts, you can just leave this blank, and that is totally fine. Now let's go through the rest of these. If you are using this with multiple people, you could assign it to a person. For myself, I just use Todoist myself. It's kind of my personal starting point and quick add for tasks, so I don't worry about that. The due date, and this can be human formatted. This is nice. So that means you can say things like today, tomorrow. For me, I highly suggest, and I use this. I just say today. And that way it goes immediately into my inbox and it shows up immediately. So I see it if I'm doing, for example, stuff during the day. I go in, I have an email, I star. Then I will see that maybe when I'm doing my end of day shutdown, or if it's in the evening and I don't or can't want to deal with it, then I can star it and get to that the next day, and I make sure it just shows up right away. Okay, due date, if you want to do something more fancy, you can get into that, but I find human formatted and saying today works just fine. And then priority, this is where you can set it wherever you want, and all this does is it changes how things are prioritized in Todoist. So let's call this is an elevated task. And then that's what this is over here, the priority, which you can type in or you can set the flag by clicking. So let's go P2. That would be elevated. And we'll change it. So you have P4, P3, P2, P1. So this would be an example of P4. It's not elevated. And you have P3, P2, P1. So that's up to you, and once you can see what happens. When I put that in here, it goes above the normal priority, and if we do another one, and let's set it at an even higher one, we'll go priority 1, then that goes at the very top because it's a higher priority. So that's up to you. To me, it makes sense to give it elevated. I just do the P3, and I find that that is helpful. So once you've got that through, you basically got this all set up, and we can go. And now the fun part is testing it and make sure we like what it looks like, and that it's working correctly. We want to make sure that, you know, it looks the way we want and the right things are in the right place. So let's send the test to Todoist. All right, it says it was successful, so let's go over and see what's there. All right, so right there, now we're seeing it, and we're seeing that there's some issues with the formatting because it's showing the stars where it should be bold. So what we could do now is go back and remove that. Otherwise, this is looking okay. We see that it's got all the right fields. It says from and to. It's got the subject line, and then we've got the link to the actual email. So let's see how that works. Okay, perfect. So it pulled up the email. That's fine. But like we saw, the formatting's a little off. So let's go back in here, and this is how you would edit. You just go back to Edit Template and go back in. And for us, since I'm recording this, I'm not sure why it's doing that, and I don't want to sit here and futz around with it. So I'm just going to remove it, and we will take those out. And then you can look into the formatting guide that Todoist provides. So let's continue. I'm going to go ahead and delete this one. Okay, and we can retest it. So let's send that test to Todoist. Just thinking about it, and let's see if it's gonna go. There we go. All right, so that looks a little bit better. We could add some spaces in here, clean it up, do what we want, but that's good enough for now. I've got everything on one line. We've got it formatted the way we want it, and I guess by opening it up, I kind of screwed up the formatting, which is the way it goes. But that's the way this goes. You kind of iterate a couple times, you get it the way you want. If you don't like something, you come back, Do it quickly. You just keep testing. Once it's the way you want it, we'll just pretend we've got it the way we want it. Click on finish. Give it a name. I find that this helps to be very literal and descriptive, especially if you have more than one of accounts, like several Gmails. You might say which one it is. So I'm just going to say PA for Productivity Academy Gmail, starred to Todoist. So that when I look through, if I had a bunch of these zaps, that I would be able to quickly see what's going on, and then I just turn it on. All right. And that's it. So it's turned on, and now anytime I do this, let's, for an example, go in here. And we're going to wait for it to load, and I'm going to star that email. Now, Zapier can take a few minutes to run. Generally, this one runs right away, but we'll give it a minute and see how it's going to work. But while that's happening, don't want to have everyone sitting there just staring at a screen. I know how fun that can be. But this is just an example of something that can save you so much time, and it seems so simple on the surface. And setting this up took, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes. But I find that I go into my Gmail inbox probably 4 times a day on the good days. Sometimes I'm able to get in there and get out, but I have time set aside where I go in, and I see, okay, I've got these emails, I need to deal with them. I can either delete the ones I don't need. I could set up a filter if I'm seeing recurring emails that I want to keep, but I don't, need to have in my inbox. And then, there's things that I need to take a quick action on. And then there's others like, oh, this isn't truly important, but it's, an upcoming thing, or I need to sit down and do some thinking, or, it's more involved. And by being able to just quickly star it and then sort the rest of them and then get out of that inbox, I would say saves me, at least a couple of minutes every time I do that. And, we think about that and like, oh, it's just a couple of minutes, but then 4 times a day, 5 days a week, 50 plus weeks a year, it adds up. And I calculated it out one time, and it was something like 25 hours a year. If you just check your email like 3 times, and it wastes, like 2 minutes a time. It's crazy. So yeah, you can get back a day of your life setting up that automation. So I think that that's a pretty cool way to do it, and it's really nice too. It helps me be more dependable. When I see those emails, I no longer worry that, am I going to have to come back, or, did I copy and write my, paste into Todoist and do something wrong, or did I forget to write myself a note? No longer have to worry about that stuff. So I'm going to check back on the page and see if we've got any questions. All right, don't see anything just yet. All right, I think that's going to do it. So I highly suggest that you set up this automation. It's a really cool way to save yourself a ton of time and to definitely make yourself more dependable. I love it. I've got it set up for multiple accounts and just makes things run much, much more smoothly. So if you're checking out the replay, thanks for watching. You can subscribe or come join us in the Real World Productivity group below. With the weekly Q&As, you can always, regardless of where you're at, ask questions ahead of time at productivity.academy/questions. I also wanted to say too, I'm going to put this into the comments below, but if you're interested in learning more about exactly like this automations, if you want to get a really solid productivity foundation, be running a 14-day challenge that you can get in on, and I'll put the link below if you'd like to be on the early access list. And going to run through that. It's going to start on the 24th. I don't have my calendar in front of me. 24th or 25th of April, and run for the 2 weeks after that. So if you'd like to get in on that, grab the link and get signed up today. Other than that, I am done for today. I don't see any more questions, so I will see everyone next week.